vulnerability research. They're trying to pick apart popular security software.
Like the stuff companies use to protect themselves.
Exactly. Things called EDR tools, endpoint detection and response.
Yeah.
Basically, the software on every company computer looking for threats.
Hmm.
They're using AI to analyze these tools, poke at them, find weaknesses, maybe zero-day flaws that nobody knows about yet.
And it's not just remote attacks, is it? There was something about North Korean actors that sounded different.
Yes, this is a really crucial and frankly chilling detail. North Korean threat actors aren't just attacking from afar. They're physically embedding themselves inside companies, thousands of them, globally.
Oh.
They get hired. They use AI-generated documents, fake resumes, forged credentials, even deep-faked images or video interviews, perhaps, to pass background checks and get jobs. Real jobs with privileged access.
Inside the company.
Inside. This lets them position themselves perfectly for long-term espionage, data theft, or setting up future attacks. The level of deception needed to create these fake professional personas. AI makes it almost trivial now.
Okay, so AI fakes people, AI writes malicious code. Have we actually seen AI running the malware itself
Yeah.
in the wild?
We have, and that's a threshold security folks have been dreading. It's happened. For the first time, AI-powered malware has been observed in use, specifically by the Russian military in Ukraine.
What makes it AI powered? What's different?
The key difference is that this malware uses an API, basically a connection, to call out to a large language model, a Chinese LLM in this case,
And why does it do that?
to get instructions on the fly. Based on what it finds on the infected machine, it asks the AI, okay, what should I do next? And the AI gives it commands dynamically.
Whoa. How does that change things for the defenders?
It fundamentally breaks traditional malware analysis. Usually, security software looks for a specific pattern, a signature in the code. If it sees that pattern, it blocks it.
Okay.
But if the malware is getting unique commands from an LLM each time, the sequence of actions, the execution path, the signature, it's never the same twice.
So the old methods don't work.
Pretty much obsolete against this kind of threat. It forces incident response teams into much more complex, dynamic analysis. It's a whole new ballgame. We are still, experts say, in the before times of this tech, but the expectation is a dramatic spike in these sophisticated intrusions.
Okay, so we've got AI faking reality, AI writing the weapons, AI directing the attack. That really paints a picture of this first illusion synthetic media.
It does.
Now, let's pivot. We've seen how AI enables attacks from outside, but what about corruption from within, the erosion of institutional reality?
Good transition. Yeah, we've established the private sector is facing these AI-enabled threats. Now let's look at the systems we're supposed to trust for fairness, for justice, law enforcement, government. How is AI impacting authority itself?
And it seems to start with this promise of objective policing, using algorithms to predict crime.
Exactly. This is where we hit the illusion of algorithmic authority. Police departments are rolling out these data-driven tools, things like Operation Laser or Predpol.
And the sales pitches.
The pitch is always efficiency and fairness. Removing human bias by relying purely on data to predict where crime might happen, or even who might commit it.
Wait, hang on, using data sounds objective, right? How does that end up being biased? Where does the bias creep in?
That's the crucial point the sources hammer home. These algorithms, they just augment the system they are within. They don't magically fix it.
What does that mean, practically?
It means the data they're fed is the system. It's historical policing data.
Yeah.
And if policing practices in the past, maybe due to systemic issues, conscious bias, whatever disproportionately targeted certain communities.
Black, brown, low-income areas.
Precisely. Then the input data itself is already biased. The algorithm doesn't question the data. It treats it as objective truth, that historical injustice.
So the algorithm isn't really predicting where crime will happen?
It's predicting where police have been active in the past, which is often not the same thing at all.
And that creates a loop, right?
A really damaging, self-reinforcing feedback loop. Neighborhoods that were heavily policed generate more data points, more stops, more minor arrests. That data goes into the algorithm.
Which then says,
Send more police to those neighborhoods. It becomes a cycle of over-policing and targeting the same communities, justified by the supposedly objective math. It's basically outsourcing moral judgment to a machine that just reflects our own past biases.
That's a deep corruption of the idea of justice. Okay, moving from local policing bias, let's talk surveillance on a bigger scale. You mentioned Echelon earlier. The Cold War system.
Yeah, Echelon, run by the Five Eyes, US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. It was the blueprint for mass surveillance. Huge system, using keyword filters on billions of communications, satellite links, faxes, radio signals, initially aimed at adversaries.
But it didn't stay that way.
No, it pretty quickly expanded to monitor citizens too. And it didn't just disappear when the Cold War ended.
It evolved.
Evolved and massively accelerated. It morphed into the digital surveillance architecture we have today. Monitoring, as the sources say, almost everyone via email, social media, search history, location data. The works.
But the threat isn't just this massive abstract thing anymore. It's getting really local, really personal. Which brings us to this Halo 3C device.
Right. This is where surveillance gets embedded in mundane objects. The Halo 3C, it's marketed as like a weight detector or an environmental sensor for schools, hospitals, stores.
And public housing, critically.
Yes, critically, also in public housing projects. And the marketing promises privacy. It explicitly says it ensures privacy without audio recording.
But that promise, it's not quite true.
It's a profound technical deceit, according to the investigators who look into it. They found major flaws. First off, no firmware signing.
Okay, what does firmware signing mean for, the average person? Why is that bad?
Think of it like a digital seal or a passport for the software running inside the device. Signed firmware guarantees it's the official, untampered software from the manufacturer.
So without that seal?
Anyone, a hacker, maybe a government agency compelling the company, could potentially create their own custom firmware, maybe malicious firmware, and the device would just accept it. Load it up, run it, no questions asked.
That's already bad, but there was something worse. A backdoor?
Yes. The really critical finding was what they called the cloud reverse proxy backdoor.
Sounds technical. What does it let them do?
It lets the manufacturer, or again, anyone who can legally compel the manufacturer, like law enforcement, remotely bypass all the device's local security settings. They can just flip a switch on their server somewhere.
A switch?
An internal setting on the device, a little flag called ISADMIN. Through this backdoor, they can remotely set that flag to true.
And if ISADMIN becomes true on this supposed vape detector,
then this device, which, by the way, has high-fidelity microphones inside it, can instantly be turned into a live listening device, a remote audio bug. That switch gets flipped in the cloud, and suddenly it's recording.
So the privacy promise is meaningless if the capability is built in.
Exactly. The investigators stressed the issue isn't necessarily what the company is doing right now. They might not be listening today. The fundamental problem is the capability they engineered into it, especially when deploying it in places like public housing, often sold under the banner of safety. It's deeply concerning.
So we've got algorithmic bias, hidden surveillance capabilities. This feeds into the third aspect of institutional erosion, right? The government itself using deceptive media.
Yes, it's the government acting as a propagandist. It's the abandonment of what the sources call fidelity to the truth. We're seeing documented cases where government agencies like DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, have used intentionally misleading videos. Videos designed not to report facts accurately, but to push a specific narrative, maybe instill fear in certain groups, like immigrants.
How were they misleading? What did they do?
Things like using footage with the wrong dates, showing events from different locations, or even staging content purely for emotional effect, not factual representation.
And this isn't just like spin, it's seen as actual propaganda.
Yes. When a government body deliberately uses misleading visuals, it crosses the line from public information into propaganda. Experts quoted in the sources were blunt when said if they'd put out stuff like that in their government job, they'd have been fired instantly.
And the damage isn't just to that one message, is it? It affects overall trust.
Absolutely. It fractures public trust. If you can't rely on official communications, especially during a crisis, a hurricane, a pandemic, whatever, how can society function effectively? It breeds cynicism and makes it impossible to know what's real when you most need to.
Okay, so we've hit synthetic media, corrupted institutions. Let's tackle the third illusion, the one that hits our wallets and our sense of stability. Is money even real?
Ah, the illusion of abstract capital. And you're right, that feeling that money, credit, it's all based on collective belief, on future promises. It feels very abstract, very precarious, especially when you see crises or market volatility.
But is it purely abstract? The sources offered a counterpoint, didn't they? Something about the past.
They did. A crucial historical perspective. If you look back, say, to the mid-20th century in the U.S., American wealth felt much more tangible, and it was far more widely distributed.
How so?
Well, in the 1950s, something like 70% of families were in what was then $3,000 a year. And about 85% of the total national income went to the bottom 93% of families.
And that translated into real things.
Yes. Tangible wealth, cars, houses, productive farms, Capital was clearly creating concrete value for a broad base of the population.
So capital can be real, tangible stuff. The issue is maybe how it's directed and by whom.
That's the key insight. It leads directly to the concept of agency. Why did so many traditional poverty aid programs fail, according to the sources?
Bureaucracy, waste.
Exactly. Massive bureaucratic overhead. The experts running the programs often ended up absorbing huge chunks of the money meant for the poor. Endless paperwork, high administrative costs, consulting fees. It wasn't respecting the agency, the inherent capability of the people it was meant to help.
The system itself was taking the money.
In effect, yes. Which led to this, well, revolutionary idea. Unconditional cash transfers.
Just giving money directly to people in poverty.
Directly. Lump sums, no strings attached, trusting them to know what to do with it, and the results from experiments. Significant measurable improvements, better health outcomes, kids doing better in school, people starting small businesses, investing.
Why does that work so much better?
Because, as one powerful example in the sources highlighted, a woman named Jean running a small grocery business. People in poverty generally don't lack the knowledge or the drive. They know how to fish, so to speak.
They just need the fishing rod.
They lack the fishing hook, the capital itself. Giving them the capital directly affirms their agency, respects their dignity, and empowers them to make choices for their own lives. That's when capital feels real again, when it's directed by human dignity.
Okay. That idea of agency connects directly to another big anxiety floating around now, especially with AI. This fear that all the hard work we did, the years we spent learning a skill, it's all invalidated now because AI can do it faster.
The wasted years anxiety, it's potent.
Yeah, this feeling like I spent a decade mastering this and now some algorithm does it in 10 seconds. Was my effort worthless?
It's a very understandable feeling, but the analysis suggests it's largely a defense mechanism. It's tied to defining our worth by a specific job title, a fixed role in a fixed structure.
And AI disrupts that structure.
Massively. If your entire identity is, I am a graphic designer or I am a coder, and a machine can suddenly do large parts of that job, yeah, it feels like an erasure.
So what's the alternative view?
The sources argue this disruption is forcing a necessary, though painful, shift. We need to redefine human worth. Not by a fixed job identity, but by our skills, our adaptability, and crucially, our ability to tackle new problems that AI can't yet solve.
Because companies are already planning for this shift, aren't they?
Absolutely. We're seeing huge capital investments moving away from traditional labor costs and pouring into AI infrastructure. Businesses are restructuring, anticipating they'll need fewer people for routine tasks. They want leaner, more agile operations.
So for you listening, the smart move isn't to cling to the old job title.
No. The advice is to start viewing yourself differently. See yourself as a portfolio, a bundle of skills with the propensity to learn. Be ready to adapt, acquire new skills, and focus on the uniquely human aspects: creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving. And importantly, speed doesn't automatically equal bad quality or slop. Sometimes speed is essential.
That's a perfect transition. If everything feels fake, institutions seem corrupt, the economy's shaking up, what's the human defense? This brings us to the crucible, right?
Yes, the human crucible. And the defense, maybe surprisingly, starts with something fundamental: disciplined, persistent human attention.
Attention, in what way?
Our ability to notice inconsistencies, to sense when something is off. That's our best defense against sophisticated deepfakes, against the flood of AI-generated content, against institutional spin. The quality of our attention matters more than ever.
And the sources mention some who might be naturally better at this, good listeners. Maybe even people with certain personality traits.
Right, the meticulous listener, the person who picks up on the tiny pauses in speech that aren't quite natural, the slight tonal shifts, the unnatural cadence in a deep-faked voice.
Like the idea you raised, maybe blind individuals who rely so heavily on auditory cues.
Exactly. Or even, as suggested, someone with traits like OCD,
Yeah.
that sort of relentless need to scrutinize things that don't quite line up, that fidgety spirit, the mind that just can't let go of an inconsistency. That's becoming a superpower.
So that nagging feeling, that doubt, it's not a bug, it's a feature now.
In this environment, absolutely.
Yeah.
Meticulous doubt is a survival skill. And we see tech trying to replicate this too. Defense tools are focusing on acoustic perception. They transcribe audio to text, analyze linguistic patterns versus sound waves, trying to find those tiny discrepancies to calculate a threshold of fakeness. Essentially using AI to catch AI lies by mimicking that human good listener trait. But ultimately, it comes back to us refusing to just accept things at face value.
Okay, attention is key. But what about the sheer volume? This idea of AI slop, the feeling that everything produced quickly by AI is just low-quality junk. How do we deal with that perception, especially when, let's be honest, AI can sometimes be better or faster than humans at certain creative tasks?
This slop label, it's often tied back to that wasted years anxiety we talked about. People whose value was linked to the slowness or difficulty of creation feel threatened.
So how do we counter that? How do we value novelty and speed without just dismissing it?
We need what the sources call the crucible of authenticity. The answer isn't to slow down creations, the opposite. We need mass production of novel, stimulating, interesting content. We need to be, as one source vividly put it, pushing the art pedal through the floor.
More content. Won't that just make things worse? More noise.
Not if it's combined with robust truth-checking, using AI tools for that, and continued human vigilance and critical thinking. Speed is vital here.
Why speed? If it's good, won't people just copy it instantly, creating more slop? And anyway, who gets to decide what's slop and what's art?
Great questions. First, the slop label is often wielded by those defending an old way of doing things. Bring some basics about art.
Like what?
1. Art fundamentally has no rules. No one is the ultimate expert. It's deeply subjective.
Okay.
2. Its value isn't determined by how long it took to make, but by what someone is willing to pay for it, or how it resonates with people.
And 3.
3. Just because you, listening now, might have spent years mastering a slow process, doesn't automatically mean that something comparable, created much faster with AI, is inherently bad or slop. Compared to what standard? Who's the judge? You.
So the uncomfortable question becomes, if AI can generate creative, novel ideas faster, and maybe even better in some cases, why are the old ways automatically special?
Exactly. Human value shifts. It moves towards the ideation, the prompt, the curation, the new problems. And we need that speed because the threats are moving fast too. Think about AI defenses, like Google's Big Sleep project mentioned in the sources.
What does that do?
It uses AI to proactively scan massive amounts of code, find those zero-day vulnerabilities before the bad guys do, and enables rapid patching. Speed saves us there. Speed allows us to generate reliable content and defenses faster than the threats emerge.
This tension, the speed, it ties into another problem. The breakdown of shared reality online, the tribalism. You mentioned the streamer controversy, Collargate.
Yes, that's a perfect, if messy, example of the failure of mentalization.
Mentalization, define that for us.
It's basically the psychological capacity to understand that other people have their own minds, their own beliefs, feelings, intentions that are separate from yours. It's the ability to hold their perspective in your head, even if you disagree with it, without immediately judging it or dismissing it.
And online, especially in these controversies.
That ability collapses. People aren't talking to each other, talking past each other, locked in their own tribal narratives, fueled by algorithms feeding them confirmation bias.
So in the streamer case, the same piece of evidence
Was interpreted in completely opposite ways. If you already believed the streamer was innocent, any ambiguous fact was proof of innocence. If you already believed they were guilty, that exact same fact was twisted into proof of manipulation or guilt.
People weren't seeing the evidence. They were seeing their pre-existing belief about the evidence.
Precisely. The mind latches onto confirming data and discounts the rest. There's no attempt to genuinely understand why the other side sees it differently. Combating this digital tribalism, this real slop that divides us, requires that disciplined attention we talked about and the courage to actually try and mentalize, to understand the other perspective.
Okay, so attention, challenging assumptions about art and speed, mentalization. To wrap this into a kind of philosophical toolkit, the sources bring up Terence McKenna. How do his ideas help here, his rejection of authority?
McKenna offers something pretty radical, especially against things like echelon or deepfakes. He championed the primacy of intuition.
Intuition over logic.
Over blind faith and flawed reasoning, yes. He argued for entertaining all possibilities but believing in nothing too rigidly, because belief itself could be a trap. He talked about a feeling into things, getting answers without a neat logical trail, a kind of direct knowing.
And how does that relate to something like echelon, the surveillance state?
He saw systems like echelon as the absolute peak of what he called the dominator culture, a culture obsessed with control, hierarchy, materialism, a culture that demands the individual serve the institution, making real community impossible.
So his response wasn't just critique, it was defiance.
Total defiance. His core message was incredibly blunt.
What was it?
Reject authority. Authority is a lie and an abomination. Authority will lead you into ruin. It's not real. It's a call to act from your own claimed identity, your own intuition. Act cleanly, without regret. It's about radical self-trust and agency against systems designed to control you.
That sounds intensely individualistic, but it also echoes some older warnings, doesn't it? Like Alexander Hamilton on protecting liberty.
It's a fascinating parallel. Hamilton warned centuries ago that those who destroy liberty often start as demagogues promising easy answers and end as tyrants. He argued the system isn't just held up by laws, but by character traits: patience, fairness, and the courage to see the opponent as a human being.
So whether it's McKenna's radical intuition or Hamilton's civic virtue, the core defense is human character.
Across centuries, across different worldviews, that seems to be the bedrock. Persistent human character, agency, and the courage to think for yourself against manufactured realities and controlling systems.
Okay, so we've journeyed through these illusions, the deep fakes, the biased algorithms, the surveillance backdoors, the government propaganda. They're sophisticated, they're powerful.
They absolutely are.
But what we've also seen is that the mechanisms behind them, they can be exposed by persistent attention, by asking hard questions, by demanding accountability.
And that's the ultimate reality, isn't it? Our fate isn't predetermined by code or algorithms. It still comes down to human choice, agency, and character. As one source put it, intelligence isn't just for knowing things, it's for decision makers to do something.
And just uncovering the deceit, like exposing the flaws in that Halo device or calling out misleading government videos, that is doing something. That's a real human action.
It absolutely is. It's reclaiming reality piece by piece.
Which leads us perfectly into our final provocative thought for you, the listener. It stems from why people get so angry about some of these things, especially online.
Yeah, the sources suggest that a lot of the intense outrage we see, say, in those online tribal battles like the streamer controversy, it's often fueled by pent-up resentment.
And resentment about what?
About the inability to hold the really powerful, hypocritical actors accountable. The systemic players, the institutions, the powerful figures who seem to escape consequences for much larger deceptions or failures.
So the anger gets misdirected.
It gets displaced onto easier, more visible targets. Individuals who maybe fit the description of the larger frustration, even if their offense is smaller scale. The energy has nowhere else to go, so it explodes onto these proxies.
Because we can't effectively hold the system accountable.
That's the theory. It creates this toxic displacement. So the final question for you to mull over is this: how do we redirect that energy, that intense, often justified resentment?
Away from the smaller targets.
And towards appropriate, effective accountability for the real systems of deceit. We've talked about the algorithmic bias, the surveillance backdoors, the institutional propaganda. How do we hold those accountable?
Without falling into the same traps.
Exactly. Without succumbing to tribalism, without resorting to hyperbole, and without just blindly trusting some new authority that promises to